Sorry. The House will come to order. All members will take their seats. All guests, please clear the aisle. The clerk will unlock the machine and take the roll. The members will record their presence by passing the green button. Is there any member present who has not yet recorded, who has not yet been recorded? Clerk, please lock the machine. There are 73 members present. We have a quorum. All rise for the invocation to be delivered by Representative Azzanaro, who will also lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Heavenly Father, you have blessed us with the responsibility of serving our fellow citizens. We humbly ask that you give us the wisdom to guide us in all our endeavors. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Representative Azzanaro. Is there objection to approval of the journal of the previous day? Hearing none, so ordered. The next order of business is new business. Is there any new business? Representative Serpa, Canario, Representative Ucci, Representative Ruggiero, Representative Ruggenberg, Representative Jackard is up on new business. Chairman McNamara, Representative Solomon, Representative Roberts, Representative Natalillo, Chairman Kennedy is up on new business. Chairman McNamara, Representative Costantino, Representative Marcello, Representative Tanzi. Representative Almeida, you up on new business? Chairman Sakachi has new business. Representative Norton has new business. Whip Trillo has new business. I got it. Wait a minute, I'll give him another minute. Let me see. Representative Nunes has new business. Is there any other reps? Representative Williams has new business. Representative Mello, new business. Representative Mello, new business. Any other reps with new business? No. The next order of business is the calendar. Clerk, please read the first item on today's calendar.
Item number 1, number 7165.
Chairman Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a bill from Representative McEntee. It's an act to vacate the forfeiture or the revocation of the charter of the Riverside Improvement Association of South Kingstown. I move passage.
Chairman Kennedy moves passage. Second by Representative Phillips, Representative Tanzi, Representative O'Brien, Representative Fogarty. No discussion. Clerk, please unlock the machine. All those in favor vote green. Opposed, red. Clerk, lock the machine. 72 in favor, 0 against. The act passes. Next act, clerk, please read.
Item number 2, number 7051.
Chairman McNamara.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 7051 by Chairwoman Serpa, an act relating to education mayoral academies, would provide that the creation of a new charter school or the expansion of an existing public school charter school would require approval from the city or town councils of each of the sending districts. Madam Speaker, last week, Representative Serpa, Chairman Serpa, clearly explained her reasoning behind that. I think everyone is familiar with that. During the hearing, Mr. Tim Ryan, who is the Executive Director of the Superintendents Association, also mentioned a situation that occurred last June. And he testified before the Education Committee relating to a new charter school in Woonsocket. He testified that Woonsocket was already under the Special Budget Commission into bankruptcy. In addition to his testimony, communications from every school committee and town council of the affected communities, that's Burrillville, North Providence, and Woonsocket, the school committee and the town council were read in opposition. Their attorney for the council said the board was told by their legal counsel they should not even consider the financial impact on the sending school districts in their consideration, and that charter was approved. This is about accountability and local communities having a say in how they spend their money. I move passage.
Chairman McNamara moves passage. That is second by Representative Agello, Whip Edwards, Representative Solomon, Representative Coughlin, Representative Kazarian, Representative Johnston, Chairman Keeble, Representative Corbasi, Representative Bennett, Representative Messier, Representative McLaughlin, Chairman Kennedy, Chairman Serpa, Representative Jackard, Representative McKernan, Representative O'Brien, McAtee, Canario, Ruggenberg, Amori, Fogarty, and O'Grady. Representative Mello, Representative Barros, Representative Abney, I'm sorry, Representative Almeida, Representative Tansey, and Deputy Whip Blazajewski, and Leader Marshall. Any other seconds? On the legislation, Leader Newberry.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Just want to correct my colleague. It was North Smithfield, not North Providence, that was opposed to the Rise Academy in Woonsocket. We talked about this bill last year. I don't want to talk too much here, but I want to emphasize a point I made a year ago. And I have to say, when I read the Providence Journal editorial page, editorial that was a scathing indictment of the sponsors of this bill, I kind of laughed to myself because I was quoted in the front page article supporting this bill when it passed it last June. And I don't think he was going to accuse me of being a tool of the teachers' unions. And frankly, it's also a lesson for why you should get a Republican co-sponsor on your legislation up front. I think when it comes to the issue of charter schools in this state, that the debate has gotten a little bit out of hand because there's a perception that people are either all in favor of charter schools or they're all against charter schools. Now, a lot of you know, and people in my district know, I have 3 children, 2 of whom go to a charter school in Woonsocket. It's a statewide school for the arts, Beacon Charter School for the Arts and the Founders Academy. My oldest daughter graduated from North Smithfield High School, very different programs. Beacon Charter School is a wonderful institution. It draws students from all over the state. I don't know anybody that has a problem with schools like that. However, my town was very much opposed to the academy that opened in Woonsocket, the Rise Academy, last year, for some of the reasons that Chairman McNamara stated. And the point I want to make is this. A lot of this debate has to do with funding and finances, and that's all very important. I actually talked a lot about that during the debate last year. But there's another component to it, and that is the number of students it takes to run a school. North Smithfield High School has about 520, 540 students at a given time, 4 grades. Graduating class is usually around 130 students. The Rise Academy in Woonsocket, once it's fully operational, is slated to remove 20 students per year from the North Smithfield, per grade year from the North Smithfield School District. That means we're slated to lose about 80 students from our high school over time. Now, Thanksgiving this year, North Smithfield High School had to cancel its football game with Scituate, and the week prior to that, because we had too many injuries in the football team. We're a small school. I question whether we'll be able even to afford to fund, for example, a football team if we have to lose 80 kids out of our high school. Now, that may seem like a non-important thing. I'm talking about a sports team, but it applies to a lot of other options that schools offer, AP classes, science labs, things like that. There's a certain critical mass of students you need to operate an effective school. Now, school planners, district to district, town to town, every year have to look long-term. I don't know how often they do it. I've never sat in a school committee, but I assume that there's a long-term plan. I know when we built a new middle school, for example, on a bond issue that passed, and I think it was 2006, the school opened in 2008, there was a projection for how many students that North Smithfield School District would have. And we built a middle school, and we funded it at millions of dollars based on those projections. Well, those projections are now going to be thrown off by this charter school in Woonsocket. They're already down a little bit anyway because projections are not always accurate, but they're going to be off by a lot more. So we made financial decisions in town based on things that we have no control over and that, frankly, we opposed. So the question is this. Do we want to give cities and towns the ability to not let their school districts be wrecked by charter schools that they don't have the ability to deal with? It's not just about the money. It's not. It's not about charter schools. There's a lot of very successful charter schools in this state. I have a real problem, though, with the idea of a parallel public school district. Why start with the Rise Academy in Woonsocket? Why not stop there? Why not open a second one in Woonsocket? Because at some level, you have to give the local towns and communities the ability to plan for their school districts and not have to be upended by this. So I apologize if I rambled on, but you may remember I got very passionate about this last year. I feel very strongly that the Mayoral Academy movement, which I used to support when I first got involved in politics, not quite realizing the impact it was going to have, is an issue. We need to address it. We cannot simply allow these parallel school systems to be set up within our districts. I know there's a lot of arguments in favor of the Mayoral Academies. I'm not saying they're bad schools, but there's a lot of considerations here, and this is not simply about unions or anti-unions or pro-charters or anti-charters. It's far more complicated than that, and our public debate in this state has not taken that into consideration. So I strongly support this bill.
Thank you, Leader. Representative McKernan.
Thank you, Speaker Pro Tem. I rise in support of the bill as well, and I was mentioned in the editorial as a sort of a tool of the unions, and I want to point out that my focus really is small business. I've never been in a union, and I'm a small business person who pays taxes. I also want to point out that this bill does not prevent good new ideas as it pertains to education. New ideas can still come along and be done in the public school system. What it does is it deals with the financial realities of the parallel system. So I strongly support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Macbeth. Chairwoman Macbeth.
Thank you. I rise on this bill. I do have concerns. I don't think that as a body we're addressing what we should be addressing between public schools and charter schools. As somebody who works in a public school and also lives in a district that has been affected by the Mayoral Academy, I've watched our public schools struggle. But I've also seen charter schools that have done amazing things with our students, things that maybe we haven't been able to do in our public schools that they are able to. And I don't think this should be, like Representative Newberry was saying, this shouldn't be a charter school against public school. But I don't think this bill addresses that either. And I think as a body, we need to address that we may not want to have two different types of school systems going, but we need to bring them together. And we also need to look at our funding on how we do that so charters aren't hurt or public schools aren't hurt. It's really about educating our children. Unfortunately, the way it's set up now, we are hurting children when we have to make a choice like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Giarrusso.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I echo the sentiments of Chairwoman Macbeth. These charter schools, they help a lot of kids. I happen to be in a district that I don't have a charter school, and I probably don't send any kids to a charter school. But what this is doing is killing the future of charter schools. What sending district is going to say, okay, there's going to be a fiscal impact, and I'm going to approve it? So we're throwing out the baby with the bathwater here. I mean, there's a lot of kids. We spoke of inner city kids yesterday. trying to help them out. I'm an inner city kid myself. I know what it's like. A public school isn't for everybody. I went to public school. I think I turned out okay. But charter schools are good for a lot of kids that don't make it in a regular school environment. So based on that, I have to say that I'm here to represent the kids. I'm not representing anybody else. So thank you, and I would urge everybody to go against this.
Thank you. Representative Marcello.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in opposition to this bill. I echo I don't want to repeat the comments I made last year on this House floor regarding this bill. I think I want to go back to Representative Newberry's argument. First of all, if this bill was in effect when he decided to send his kids to public school, to the charter schools, they would not. His town council most likely wouldn't have approved it. His town council would have to approve sending whether his kids could go to that school. Now, we all know that there's a disparity between the suburbs and the inner cities and how we fund our schools. And everyone agrees we don't fund our schools well enough. And we don't take into account the funding formula is broken. And the funding formula, when it was put into effect, didn't really address the issue of charter schools. All legitimate concerns. All legitimate concerns, none of which are addressed in this bill. None whatsoever. And what we're doing is we're basically saying we are going to increase the disparity and the achievement of kids. Because if you come from a suburban district and your schools are doing okay and you have extra money, then it's more likely than not that your city or town council is going to say, yeah, charter school, we can approve that. We can afford it. However, you're from the inner city, from the Pawtucket, the Central Falls, the urban ring, who really don't have enough money, they're going to say no to those students. And what happens to those kids? They're left in the system that's failing them. They're left in the system that's failing them. And the disparity gets greater and greater and greater. The issue, ladies and gentlemen, is not whether charter schools are good or bad. We can have that debate all day long. I think they're part of educational reform, something that we're needed. The issue is, are we going to commit ourselves to improving the educational system across the state, whether you're from Providence or Situate or Woonsocket? Are we committed to doing that? This bill tells me we're not. It does not. We all look to our neighbor to the north, Massachusetts, the greatest public education system in the country, whose students score consistently in the top tier of every category. And guess what their governor just proposed? 11 new charter schools in their state. 11 new charter schools in their state. Again, I think we have a problem in the way we fund charter schools. I will agree with every member of the House who says that. This bill does nothing to address that issue, and it makes matters worse. It makes matters worse because it leaves people with no hope of going to a better school if their own school is failing. That's why I oppose this bill, and I urge you to do the same. Thank you.
Representative Ruggiero.
Thank you, Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I rise in support of this bill, but I have had some hesitation. Having served on the Funding Formula Working Group, I think I've learned more than I need to know about this issue. There are three types of charters in our state: the independent charters, the district charter schools, and the mayoral academies. We have 7,400 kids out of 150,000. 5% go to these public schools of choice. And you can argue it's not a choice because in many ways it's a chance, it's a lottery. Charters are set up to be innovation centers, and the independent charters are doing that. The Nurses Institute, training high school kids to become nurses of the future. We'll have a shortage of about 6,000 nurses in the next 7 or 8 years in our state. The Beacon School for the Art, Noel Leadership, which helps parenting kids in our school. But the elephant in the room are the Mayoral Academies. Their setup is a public school parallel line that's siphoning students and money from our suburbs, the Lincolns, the Cumberlands, the Narragansetts, the North Kingstowns. The funding formula, in my opinion, wrongly so, has set up winners and losers because it's so reliant on property taxes. And that's the issue. When the money follows the student, sending communities are losing money. In Jamestown, we send our kids to North Kingstown. But we just decided in the past year we're going to give them a choice to go to Narragansett. So when 7 kids decide at $16,000 a student to go to Narragansett, it's a windfall for one community, it's a bummer for another community. But we need to look at the funding formula, the local aid, and the reliance we have on property taxes. Education is important for our kids. Look at our schools. Many of them are crumbling. We need to take care of the schools. The libraries are closing down. We need libraries in our communities. So I support this bill because it helps the local communities decide in the local level. But ladies and gentlemen, we have a statewide issue that we're going to have to decide in the next couple of years. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Deputy Speaker Lima.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. Every debate on charter schools, the core principle we're debating is whether or not the public school system that we have provides an education, a good education for our students. That's the fundamental debate on it. So what happens with the charter schools? We should be providing a public quality education for all our students. Are you saying we're not providing a quality education for our public school students? That's our job. That's what we should be doing. No, we should have charter schools to do that, and we should take the money away from all of our public school students and give it to charter schools? If you believe our schools are failing and we need charter schools, then why would you want to take more money away from the public school system? It doesn't make any sense. Our job is to provide a good quality public school education. I agree with Chairman McBeth. We need to look at the funding formula and address this situation. But the one thing I do know we should not be doing is taking money away from the public school system. We should just ensure that the kids that go to public school in Rhode Island have the tools to learn and that they're getting a quality education. So this legislation is the first great step because what it does, it puts the control where it should be. It puts it with the local cities and towns, with the council. The council's the one who has to raise taxes, look at the education system. They're the ones that know each town's individual, unique personalities. That's where it belongs. But I was a public school teacher, and I hope none of us here think that our kids are not getting a good quality education. Can we improve it? Of course. But the one way you're not going to improve it is taking money away from it and putting it in a different system for a few privileged kids that can go to another school. So I urge your support. Thank you.
Representative Morgan.
Thank you, Speaker. Nothing is more powerful than a good education in changing lives. There's a lot of teachers here in this room, and I think you all know that. We all know that. Education can break the bonds of poverty. It can move kids, children, into a better life and make them successful and prosperous. We also know that not every child learns the same way. Some kids learn better in different environments. And we have seen from charter schools that many kids who might be failing in the traditional public school thrive in that environment. The charter schools that are out there have enormous success rates with children who are poor, who are non-English speaking, come from non-English speaking families, who are minorities, who are special needs. And those children thrive. And because they thrive, they are going to have better lives, and they are going to be better contributors to Rhode Island, to our employers, to our economy. When we talk about charter schools, there are a lot of things that we could do to make it fairer. We could work on the funding formula No doubt. It's a math calculation. That's what it is. It may be difficult, but we can do that, and we can change the funding formula. For those special needs students who have profound disabilities and are extraordinarily expensive, we could set up a state fund. I would support that because communities cannot afford those children with profound disabilities. We can do a lot of things to make it easier on sending communities. We can make a criteria for the Board of Education's approval that they look at the financial stability of the sending districts. But what we shouldn't be doing is passing a bill that will make it almost impossible for a new charter school to be approved. There is a short term and a long term here. The short term is we might save a few dollars. The long term is that we might destroy or not allow some lives to reach their full potential. That's what we should be looking at, the long-term strategy. And charter schools have shown themselves to be valuable to Rhode Island and to those students who are fortunate enough to have their name pulled. I urge you to vote against this and to work on the parts of this conundrum that will help, but not to kill charter schools off. They're too valuable to us. Thank you.
Representative McLaughlin.
Mr. Speaker, members of the House, I've heard a lot of testimony, on charter schools, Mayoral Academies. I can speak from experience. My district is in Central Falls and Cumberland. I currently have 3 Mayoral Academies, in my district. Charter schools, Mayoral Academies, do they offer a good education? Absolutely. But that's not the problem, So do our public schools, all right? We have some great teachers, and we have great public schools. I think our new commissioner actually stated, basically that he is looking into reform to make public schools more like charter schools. But the issue here is not, charter schools, Mayoral Academies. So let's get back to basics, because I sat on hearings with town council approval, all right, for actually 2 Mayoral Academies, that took place in my district. There was a circus, all right. The one thing we forget is there was no voter approval on the referendums for the building of the Mayoral Academy, and they built one over mines to boot, So, something, here's the deal, all right? I think, the bill is a great bill, all right? I think our town council, school committees, and voter referendum should have approval on this, all right? When we put up an addition in a school, when we go to build another school, what do? We go out for voter approval, and it's approved by the town council. No, nobody is above, our local laws. Sure, there's a financial crisis, and I'll give you one better. If you want to hear this, our Mayoral Academies, you journalists there that are sitting there, we got an LLC company in Providence that owns St. Patrick's. Who's the owners? Civic Builders in New York. All right, the last Mayoral Academy that went up, all right, $9 to $12 million project. Who owns it? Civic Builders in New York. What do they pay in taxes? Nada. What do they pay to the town of Cumberland? Nothing. So maybe they want to partake in the, funding for these 2 systems that we're running. Thank you so much. I support this bill wholeheartedly.
Thank you. Representative Amore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This will come as a shock to those in the room, but I disagree with Representative Marcello. Look, I don't even know what the definition of a failing school is. What I do know is that we have struggling districts. And we have demographics where kids struggle because their moms are working 2 jobs because they're not home. We have districts where the poverty is so overwhelming that students are unable to learn. We have districts where there are home situations that are unimaginable. And what we do know is that we can do all the things that Representative Giarrusso and Representative Morgan talked about in the existing structure of the public schools as they exist. We can do that. We have to commit to doing that, but we can do that. And if we want to look at a long-term view, as Representative Morgan talked about, then we should be looking at early childhood intervention. We should be looking at wraparound social service efforts. We should be looking at all the things that reach this population that we're talking about. When it comes to Massachusetts, I am so tired of hearing the Massachusetts comparison, and I would suggest that Rep. Marcelo read my op-ed from a month ago that compares Massachusetts to Rhode Island's demographics. We are not comparable. We are not comparable. There is a huge median income difference. There is a huge difference in education level of parents. There is a huge difference in free and reduced lunch numbers. There's a huge difference where it matters. What the research tells us is the biggest factor on student success is where those students are coming from. Now, can we help them? Yes. Can we improve them? Yes. But we need to do it within the existing structure. And the problem is this creates a vicious cycle because we pull the engaged students and their parents out of the traditionals and we put them in the charters, and then Representative Marcelo can get up and say, well, the school is failing. Well, we took the best students out of the existing school. We left the most needy students in the public schools. It costs more money to educate them, but we're taking money from them. This is a big issue, yes, but Representative Giarrusso, my friend, always says that there's people on the waiting list and that public schools aren't for everybody, and I agree with that. But charter schools are definitely not for everybody, and all you have to do is look at the demographics of the mayorals. There's a difference. They do not reflect what looks like the traditional urban districts that send to them. They don't look like it. The free and reduced lunch numbers are similar, but when you break down free versus reduced, they are not similar. When you look, and I would venture a guess that a lot of the issues that I just talked about, the comparison between Massachusetts and Rhode Island, hold true on that as well. But the biggest difference is you have an engaged parent who is going through the application process, getting it in on time, and that's a huge difference. So the people that we know are not in these places are people who don't go through that process or even know about it. So this is an apples and oranges comparison. We can do good work, and we are doing good work in our existing public schools, and we should be able to educate students in different ways within the existing structure. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Representative. Chairwoman Serpa.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, Pro Tem and members. I promise not to tell you yet the tale of West Warwick's fiscal woes once again. But this summer I was cleaning out a box of some stuff. I'm famous for collecting stuff at my house. And I ran across an op-ed piece that was written on October 20th, 2014 by the CEO of a pretty well-known conservative think tank here in Rhode Island. And then it was emailed to us. You know, the think tank with the little blue sailboat in the upper left-hand corner with the stars around it. And it was entitled, Our Land, Our Rights, Our Local Government. And this came out when Roadmap was introduced. And this op-ed piece was condemning Roadmap because this author, this CEO, said Roadmap threatens local sovereignty because it infringes, allegedly, it infringes upon a community's right to design its own footprint. It accused Roadmap, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I have it here for you. I just bolded a couple of things so I could read them. It accused Roadmap of having the potential to create many unsustainable problems. Their words. The email stated, quote, local government is better government, mostly reflecting the lives of the people it serves. It offered the opinion that local officials understand the communities, their words, local values and local traditions. This CEO kept using the word local. And then the email in the op-ed piece concluded, it's about a page and a half. It concluded and said, local government should never be put into a position in which they may have to cede the decisions that affect a community's future, economy, and planning. So, if local government, and I said this last year during the debate, if local government is important when it comes to roadmap, because that's such a threat to a community's footprint in the future, I'm suggesting that charters and mayoral academies are also a threat to a community's footprint. So, and honestly, I see no reason to vote against this bill. Because if your communities, like mine, are in as much fiscal trouble as mine are, I'm sure they're not going to support it. But if you're very comfortable that your communities are fiscally, financially stable, they're going to vote to support it. So this is a win-win all around. So everybody should be voting yes for this bill. Because it's not about pitting mayorals versus publics. Think about the fiscal condition of your community when you cast your vote today. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Leader DeSimone.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I think it's important that we understand what this bill does. Everybody in this room, I know, feels strongly about getting the best education we can for our citizens. And everyone feels strongly one way or the other about the future of charter schools. So that's a debate that I'm sure is going to take place on this floor. There's meetings going on. Representative O'Grady, Representative Amori, many other representatives, senators, the governors, they're all talking about different funding. And that debate's going to culminate in a piece of legislation. But this particular piece of legislation sort of tolls the line. What this legislation says is, look, whatever we have now in terms of charter schools will remain there. If there's going to be any future charter schools, then as Representative Serpa has stated, the local cities and towns are going to have to approve that. Because at the end of the day, they're losing money to these new charter schools. So this bill doesn't hurt anything that's already in existence and really doesn't hurt anything in the future as long as the local municipality approves it. Very, very simple. So I don't really think we have to get on a debate on what we think the merits are of charter schools. But I want to put this in perspective for you because I think this is an important point. One of the representatives mentioned the state of Massachusetts, how wonderful they do. Well, last time I checked, Rhode Island has about 1 million people. And depending on how you figure the amount of charter schools we have, I know there's some buildings that have 2 and 1. So we have between 25 and 29 charter schools in Rhode Island right now, with a population of around 1 million. Massachusetts, according to the Department of Education of Massachusetts, has 82 charter schools. Their population is 6.7 million. Do the math. They should have well over 200 charter schools just to be even with us. So using that as a perspective, this piece of legislation should have come many, many years ago. So what I would submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, we should support Representative Serpa's bill. We should study charter schools, the funding, what they're there for, why they were created, how they can help better educate kids. And if there's going to be other charter schools, at least for the time being, let's let the municipal governments have a say in that. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I would urge passage of this piece of legislation. Thank you.
Clerk, unlock the machine. All those in favor vote green, opposed red. Clerk, lock the machine. 60 in favor, 11 against. The act passes. Are there any announcements or introductions? Announcements or introductions? Representative Tansey.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am very excited today. I have some guests who came up from South Kingstown, and I'd like to introduce them. We have 2 young ladies, and I'd like to invite them to stand up, Hannah and Haley Loftus. They are here today in recognition of the volunteer work that they've done in the community. They've worked on the Special Olympics Summer Games, volunteering, as well as in the annual gift drive for our local senior veterans in nursing homes. And I think the essence of the work that they've done as very talented artists and very generous residents of South Kingstown, the spirit of their work was summed up very well by the coordinator of the Special Olympics in our town when he said, though they're only freshmen in South Kingstown High School, these two young ladies have already had a very real and positive impact on many people in our community. They are the last to seek recognition, but are the first to raise their hand and ask, what can I do? And so today I wanted to give them the much-deserved recognition for all that they have done. So welcome to the House, Hannah and Haley. And with them today, Madam Speaker, are their mother, Tina Loftus. We also have Dennis DeJesus, who is the Rhode Island coordinator for the Special Olympics of Rhode Island. And we have another wonderful gentleman from our community who brought their good deeds to light. We have Tiger Patrick, if you could stand for a moment, who is the coordinator of the Special Olympics and also the head of VFW 916's efforts to help with the veterans in our district. So thank you all.
Thank you, Representative Tansey, and thank all of you for all your hard work. The Special Olympics is a fantastic program. Representative Diaz.
Request for announcement, Madam Speaker.
Proceed.
The House Committee on Health, Education and Welfare will meet at the Rise, Room 101. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Azanaro.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Request for adjournment, please.
Proceed.
Today we buried a 26-year-old boy, man, in the town of Westerly that suffered a great deal throughout his life. Name is Stephen Beauclair. He is going to be sadly missed by all of his family, which they're large, and all of his friends. So I'd like to adjourn in his memory. And also an announcement, please, that the Veterans Affairs Committee will meet in the House Lounge at the Rise for a picture. Please come to the House Lounge for a picture. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Giarrusso.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. With consent of the minority and majority leader, I have a House resolution for immediate consent.
Send it up. Does
not have to be read.
Thank you. Chairman Gallison.
Announcement, Madam Speaker.
Proceed.
The House Committee on Finance will be meeting at the Rise in room 35, and I'd like to remind all members, as was in the newsletter yesterday, to please, if you're going to request a hearing on a bill, please fill out the proper form. Thank you.
Representative Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Request for adjournment?
Proceed.
I ask that the House adjourn in memory of Robert Renahan, better known as Jack Renahan. Jack died Sunday at the age of 98. He was a member of the Teamsters Local 251 for 40 years and the William Shields Post. He also was a loyal member of the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War and served as commander of the Governor Elisha Dyer Camp No. 7, Department of Rhode Island in 1999. Jack was active with Civil War reenactments and would often joke that he fought in the Civil War. He is survived by 4 children, 10 grandchildren, 19 great-grandchildren, and 5 great-great-grandchildren. The knowledge and wisdom that Jack bestowed on his friends and relatives will never be forgotten. May God bless Jack and his family. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Natalillo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Without objection, I'd like to be recorded in the affirmative on our floor calendar, item number 1, please.
So ordered.
Thank you.
Representative McAtee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a resolution for immediate consideration with consent of the minority and majority leaders. It does not have to be read.
Thank you. Send it up. Representative Williams.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Request for adjournment.
Proceed.
Today was the beginning of a sad time in my family's life. The matriarch of my dad's side passed away and was buried today. Eva Robinson, she was a little bit of thing, but she was a very strong, sweet chocolate woman. She was powerful, she was independent, and she was straightforward with the truth. There was no filter on her mouth. She's going on, but she has left us with a lot of memories and a legacy. I say she has opened up the door because her siblings now are shepherds to the children that they have left behind. I would greatly appreciate her memory to be placed in the records today. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. You have our sincerest condolences. Representative Laughlin.
Announcement, Madam Speaker.
Proceed.
I'd just like to wish my son-in-law the best, Jay Tutwild. He's headed February 2nd, Fort Benning, Georgia, where he will go basic AIT and then off to Officers Candidate School, OCS. So I just want to let him know and ask that you keep him in your prayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative McAtee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an announcement.
Proceed.
The House Committee on Labor is meeting tomorrow, January 28th at 3:30 p.m. and will continue at the Rise if needed, and it will be in room 205.
Thank you. Representative Diaz.
Madam Speaker, can you please come back to new business?
Back to new business. So what? Representative Diaz has new business. Representative Natalillo has new business. Chairman Craven has new business. Representative Maldonado has new business. Any other new business? Okay, back to announcements. And Representative Ruggiero, didn't see you there. New business. Anyone else? Last call, new business. Back to announcements and introductions. Seeing none, the House has a resolution for media consideration proclaiming, by Representative Giarrusso, proclaiming Saturday, April 16th to be Historic Cemetery Restoration Awareness Day in the state of Rhode Island. That's seconded by Representative Natalillo and Representative Marcello. Representative Hull. All those in favor, aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. We have a resolution for immediate consideration extending congratulations from Leader DeSimone and Deputy Whip Blazajewski, seconded by Deputy Whip Representative Blazajewski. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. I have a House resolution extending condolences by Leader DeSimone and Leader Newberry for immediate consideration. All those in favor, aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. I have a resolution for immediate consideration extending sincere condolences for the passing of Robert G. Powers. That is by Representative McAtee, seconded by Representatives Craven, Tansey, Leader Newberry, Representative O'Brien, Jackard, Canario, Chairman Sakachi, Representative Mori, Representative McKiernan, Carson, and Almeida. All those in favor, aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Leader DeSimone.
Announcement, please.
Proceed.
Tomorrow, the ethics training session that was originally scheduled will be postponed, and we'll provide with the new schedule. That's due to the fact that tomorrow we are going to have a House Democratic caucus in the House Lounge at the Rise. The committees that are scheduled to meet tomorrow at the Rise will meet at the conclusion of the caucus. Also, for those members who didn't have the opportunity to have their official photos taken recently, Bill White will be in the House Lounge tonight at the Rise to take your photos. Thank you.
Representative Lancia.
Madam Speaker, an announcement.
Proceed.
You all would have gotten a flyer in your boxes regarding a first annual National Prayer Breakfast. The Speaker's permission to allow me to do that. Essentially, it's a breakfast that's been going on in Washington, D.C. since 1953. It brings both political, social, and religious leaders together over breakfast. Actually, it's an opportunity also for prayer and just talk about things of faith. You'll notice that we'd like to get an RSVP by Friday. There's 2 phone numbers on there. It is, because of the space we're using, it is limited. So we'd like to know how many are coming so that we can invite more of the community, because it is going to be invitation only. And it is a free breakfast, and there will be a little bit of entertainment, and the Episcopal Bishop, Bishop Nisley, will be the guest speaker. So by Friday, RSVP, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Is there objection to transmitting all matters on the clerk's desk to Her Excellency the Governor, the Honorable Senate, or the Secretary of the State forthwith? Hearing none, so ordered. Leader DeSimone moves that the House adjourn in memory of Stephen R. Boisclair, Robert Jack Renahan, and Eva Robinson. That motion is seconded by Leader Newberry. All those in favor, please stand for a moment of silence. The House is adjourned.
Nice job.